We're running late, and yeah, I got a different.
It's all right.
Different setting here. I hadn't had a chance to talk to you. Wow, my lighting changed a lot. I hadn't had a chance to talk to you. Have a bit of a life change here. Lisa and I decided that we would go our separate ways. I'll be coming from here from now on with the podcast. And I can't believe I kept a straight face from that April Fool's.
It's the second.
I know, but I'm here because at our rental house, I finally got rid of my renters, and I have 3 weeks to put everything back together. We had this place exactly the way we wanted it for the first time. Bought new furniture, got furniture from her mother, from her move, like really expensive stuff. And
right.
You know, I have remodeled every square inch of this house myself. And these guys were pigs, absolute pigs. So I've had to come in here, and it's been a whirlwind this week because I'm trying to keep my business running and trying to get things clean enough. And I did last week for the most part, coming here sporadically and going back, but clean enough so I could live while I repair and remodel again. So I've made big headway, but geez, it's been discombobulating, completely discombobulating.
Well, I have to say, I was a little thrown off by the beginning here, and
I'm sorry.
So it was hard to concentrate on what you were saying after that. All I heard was
that's
womp,
me.
Womp, 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 womp.
I understand,
but I think you're cleaning
mean.
up after your guests. That you're.
That's when you came back.
Yeah. I'm like, what? Oh, guests. Oh, yeah. I think he's cleaning up his house right now. Getting ready for the next people to come in. That's what I got out of it.
Yeah, that's correct. And I'm really sorry. I have at the end of the show, I got an April Fool's story that I heard on the news, and it's not, I don't have a video or anything to go with it. I saw the video. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
But the story you'll relate to, and it's a similar, I guess this is like, April Fool's is probably more cruel than it is funny. You know, kind of things. So like what I just did right there, I am now sorry that I did it.
That was kind of funny, actually.
Because I thought about this actually when I was in the shower a few minutes ago. This is where I came up with it, because obviously I got different surroundings. And I didn't think I'd be able to keep a straight face through it. Because I know me, you know, but I did. And then it was
surreal for me. I was like, I don't think I heard that right. And it's very early in the morning over here. I'm like, he just said that so calmly that
I know. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to not react.
I was
like
sorry.
on an overload. I was like a pinball machine. Tilt.
Yeah. You know, I wanted to show you another thing, and I've got to remember to put the screen share thing on multiple people so that multiple people can do it. But did you hear about, and I'm trying to get organized, did you hear about Michael Strahan's April Fool's?
No, I did not.
It was, I thought it was interesting. This is another one that just this morning I was thinking about, and I wanted to share this with you. I'm sharing the screen now. He told everybody that he got his famous tooth gap fixed.
Come on.
See that do you see it?
Yeah, I do see that.
He looks great.
He does look great. Did he? But he didn't.
He didn't. It was an April Fool's, and he was really surprised with the feedback that most people were very disappointed. But you know what I got out of it?
Wait. They were disappointed that he did
that because it's something of a trademark for him. And see, I don't know the guy. I think he's on the Today Show, but he's a former NFL player.
Right. He
super popular.
Yeah.
And he's very popular for his positivity that he exudes. I think love comes off.
He's a good guy. Yeah.
So I was very moved by this in the way that, look how he looked. I took the share off, but he looked fantastic.
He did actually. Yeah.
But he wants to be him. He loves himself so much that he didn't want to change that.
That's a really awesome thing there, is that people that love themselves, it almost doesn't matter, the aesthetical thing that we look at, and but people that know themselves, that are confident in themselves, that have, they exude that beauty seems to emanate out of the inside of them.
I'm glad that you caught that. Beauty emanates from the inside of them. I agree with you. And I thought about it so much. I found that silly thing so moving because, like I said, about the love he has for himself, and he's so loved, the beauty comes from within, as you just said. And it's the difference between, like, Lisa grew up in homes where you heard things like, well, I don't want you to get a big head. Right. You have friends that say that kind of stuff. You know what that really means? I don't want you to have better self-esteem than me. And I want to keep it down. Because when somebody is absolutely complete and whole and feels great about themselves, then they're only giving. They're pushing out. They're no longer grabbing and trying to take for themselves.
That's exactly right.
I have a friend.
You can tell those people as soon as you're in their presence.
As soon as you're in their presence, the energy they emit. I have a friend that illustrates this very well, Jeff Gotch. I call him Atlanta Jeff. He's from Atlanta. He lived here for a few years. This is like in towards the early 2000s. And we became instant friends, and we're still friends. I'm trying to find an angle to get him on the podcast. We were texting about that when I was in Florida. But my point to that is he and I would go out. I'd introduce him to some people. All of a sudden he moves. He's back in Atlanta. He comes back 2 years later. We go out, sees the same people, and he asks about, well, how did that thing go out? You were looking for this job or whatever. They would tell, how's your kids doing? Like what he is like, everybody loves Raymond. Everybody loves Jeff. Always been that way. Yeah. Everything kind of was easy for him because I guess he has some of the best parents in the world, is my guess. Maybe he's an old soul. I don't know. But I think he's like a Michael Strahan, where all his needs are met. So all he's doing now is looking outwardly and giving outwardly. And I think that's magic. And I want to make the point once again that you can't give somebody a big head. The big head thing, the ego, we're talking about ego, that's built off of insecurities, as an overcompensation for insecurity. No, if you feed somebody good, clean love, unconditional love, and they get filled up with that, they become a Michael Strahan, perhaps, somebody that is now looking outwardly.
Boy, a lot of good stuff right there. Have you noticed, Barry, that the people that seem to emanate that beauty are also the same people that seem to be very good listeners?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Like when you're talking to them, they're not all about, well, I got to tell you about me. Yeah. They want to hear, they empathize, they get in your shoes, they feel you. Michael Strahan's that kind of person. Anne Marie's uncle Bill was the defensive coordinator for the Giants when Michael Strahan was there. So really? I've talked to Bill about Michael Strahan, and is he really that guy, that persona that comes off on TV? Absolutely genuine. That's the kind of guy that he is. But it's really cool to know that, because you see people on TV and you think, that guy's great, and then you find out in the tabloids, no, that guy's not great. Or wait, what do I believe? But this guy has been consistent the whole time. And Barry, you have a lot of those same qualities.
Oh my God.
You are a great listener. You're very compassionate. You are a person that can empathize with people. And don't let anybody tell you any differently, because I've known you most of my life. And that's the one thing I love when we talk, even now, like, you're listening. I know that when I'm speaking, that you're hearing me, not just in your head, but in your heart.
Oh, my heart is so full right now. I thank you so much for those very kind words. I don't feel that I live up to them, because I always think about the times I was very self-centered. My ego got in the way. I hurt somebody. I just hurt you at the beginning of this podcast.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
I did.
I forgive you.
It wasn't my intention. It really wasn't. It's okay. I saw the way it came off, and it was not cool.
Speaking of forgiveness, happy Good Friday to you.
Oh, it is. is, and I didn't think about that at all today.
Yeah, so that's a big day. Yeah, it's a prelude to Easter. Today on the Christian calendar is the day that our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ gave his life for me and you. And as a result, we have all of these freedoms and liberties now, and many promises. So I think, like, from a spiritual side of things, these people that we're talking about, you said they have their needs fulfilled. Most of these people have a very strong spiritual connection to God.
Yeah.
So that whatever it is that they don't feel that they have, they feel like it's coming, or that the Lord's going to take care of it, so that they could be free and they could walk around and just be genuinely themselves with all of their flaws and all of their shortcomings, and just be okay with that. And those people, a lot of times they call them self-actualized.
Yes.
These
Maslow.
are people that, they just come off the page when you're around them. Yeah. And then when you leave them, you think, what does that guy have that I don't have? Those are the kind of things that you say. Absolutely. And anyway, but happy Good Friday to you. Do you do anything for Easter at all?
No, my mom and I spent years calling each other around Easter. Do we do anything on Easter? And I finally realized, no, we don't really do anything on Easter. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about going back to your spiritual grounding with this, because the first thing I think about every time that you say Jesus and what he's brought to a life is, I want you to roll with this, but the forgiveness, forgiving other people, forgiving yourself primarily for your shortcomings. And that's what I think. Yeah.
That's a big one right there.
How correct am I in just, that's the first thing I think about when I think about Jesus dying on the cross.
Forgiving yourself.
The ability for us to forgive ourselves and other people, which is completely lost in the woke generation.
Oh boy, I tell you, it seems to be what the real attack is on the truth of forgiveness. Forgiveness is at the center of your freedom. Have you ever noticed that when you carry a grudge, that it feels as though you're in bondage to that grudge?
You are.
That you're just consumed by it. You can't think of anything else. There's a bitterness that happens. And then you hear in this world, people will say things like, I'm going to forget. I just don't have it inside of me to forgive that person yet. I still have to come to terms with the bitterness that I have. All these things. Those are real things. I mean, you can't deny that.
There's an ancient Chinese proverb, and I know that sounds corny, but true. There's an ancient Chinese proverb that says, if you want to go out for revenge, dig 2 graves.
Ooh, that is a great one, because the fact of the matter is that when you are in unforgiveness, really the person that is suffering the most is you.
Yes.
Because the other person may not even know. They're just going along all happy-go-lucky and everything, and meanwhile you're just burning up inside. It's like you got hydrochloric acid in your stomach or something. This is it. The real message is that forgiveness, contrary to popular belief, is not a feeling. It's a decision that you have to make.
It's a tough concept.
It is. The first one you have to make really is to forgive yourself. And those people that have learned that then have that forgiveness. I mean, this is really a big deal, is if you can forgive yourself, then now you have forgiveness within you to give to other people. Most people that are standing in judgment of other people, really, if you really start to analyze it, what I find is that they're most critical of themselves, and they're judging themselves. And therefore they're taking that judgment and they're mirroring it out to everybody else, and using either that same line, that same plumb line, or even a higher plumb line to make themselves feel better about themselves, to justify themselves. And this is, like you said, it goes back to that ancient Chinese proverb. This actually leads right to the grave.
It really does. I remember one of those Wayne Dyer calls. I tell you that I listen to this podcast. People will call in, and he gives like a 10-minute piece of advice. He was a clinical psychologist, and of course, he spent most of his life as a motivational speaker or a metaphysical writer, however you want to define it. But he he talked about, his long lost abusive father. When he was very young, he always wanted to know who he was, and he had so much anger about that, and he wanted to piss on his grave. That was his goal. He found him, found his grave. I have a hard time talking about this.
Wow.
And he goes, this is a moment that changed my life. He goes, I don't know where it came from. He goes, all I did was say, I forgive you. And all his burden was gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I gotta say, I saw this happen in my life. I talk a lot about him. My father had just great bitterness about his upbringing in West Virginia, and he carried that.
So did my father, from his upbringing in West Virginia. The same.
Oh, in West Virginia, geez, that's a place.
Tough
they
place.
were ruining people down there, man.
Yeah.
And he was jaded. And he found Christ. I mean, really, Christ found him. But late in his life, I was, I think, 18 at the time when it happened. And this man was going around, just had bitterness towards people. And I went away to college. He became a Christian. And when I came back, I didn't know this, but I noticed a big difference. I mean, the guy was smiling. He was being nice to everybody. I didn't hear him like saying a lot of those terrible things he was saying about the neighbors. And I mean, he was blessing. The man was changed, and it had everything to do with forgiveness. And I think really, if we were to bring him onto the show, I think he would realize that the first thing he realized was that he was forgiven, so that he could forgive himself. And with that, it changed him. It was almost like a physiological change that happened, and it changed his face. I mean, it changed the inside of him. His face changed. He didn't have that fierce eagle look on his face anymore.
The hardness.
And you know, when you're, so I wasn't a Christian at the time, but boy, when I saw that, it was like, well, this has to be real. I know this guy, that nothing can change him, but it has to be God. I mean, he was changed. Well, that's amazing, amazing. But anyhow, in the tribute of Good Friday, that's what Jesus has done to the world, and it's a better place as a result. Anyway,
wait. Yes, thank you. And I just want to add two final things to that, because I've had this in my notes for months about forgiveness. And I
love the topic. I could talk about it.
There's probably many books, entire books on the concept of forgiveness, and there should be. It's a complicated thing. I wanted to share this. I think this is important because Dyer said on that phone call to that person who was being eaten alive by harboring resentment, in other words, not being able to forgive, he said, and when you do go to espouse forgiveness to this person, like it was a brother or something, I don't know, I don't remember, but he said, don't say I forgive you. That triggers defensiveness. It won't go well. Just simply say I care about you. And even that person that is trying to press your buttons, remember we talked about that a week or two ago, it's very similar. That person that is in your life that triggers you, that gives you this anger that you can't forgive, say to them, I care about you. In the face of it all, when you show people unconditional love, they have nowhere else to go.
That is absolutely
You're not in a corner anymore.
You know? I think about that. You know, I care about, that's beautiful, man. I love that. And also the I forgive you thing. I have had people say that to me before, and it felt like medicine when they said it. So I've also had people say it to me before where I felt like that was meaningless. I think it has a lot to do with your heart when you say it.
Your intention.
There's a tone that comes out, you know, like when you just want somebody to just leave you alone. I forgive you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But then there's the condescending. I
Yes.
forgive you. Like,
Yes.
oh, you have no idea how lowly you are. So I
Right.
forgive you. Like you're
Right.
God or something.
Ah, gosh.
Hey, I
tell
got
you.
one final thing because I want to finally clear it out of my notes.
I love
Okay.
it, but I might go on this, but go ahead.
No, and that's fine. It's an important topic.
Yeah.
The final phrase that Dyer shared with us, he goes, know that this anger that you're carrying, we're talking about forgiveness now, trying to get rid of this anger. Anger, it's the snake venom. The bite won't kill. The snake bite doesn't kill you. It's the venom that does. So in other words, you can get bitten by someone, but if you carry it with you, that's where the damage is done. So that's why forgiveness is so important. Yeah.
There's so much of this going on right now with our, our environment that we live in right now, where people are pitted against each other, and really forgiveness and love is the answer. Forgiveness and love are tied. You can't really separate those two things.
Agreed.
They live inside of each other.
Right.
This I was gonna say my experience with forgiveness that just rocked my world and changed my life forever was when I was 19 years old and I got into a ton of trouble. I won't go into that, but I was sitting in front of my father, and he was a hard guy, but he had just become this Christian, and so he was kind of different, and I was pretty sure he was going to kill me. And when I told him the situation, he immediately took his glasses off and he said, Merle, I'm guilty of the same thing. And
wow.
We're going to get you through this. And you're a good man. You're good. Okay. Keep your head up. And that's how he was. It was a completely different reaction than I thought I was going to get. And I remember how I marveled at that even to this day. That was when I was 19. I'm 55 now. That just the love that came out of him instead of judgment. And the next day I became a Christian. It had everything to do with this change and the forgiveness that it changed my life forever. And I just say, just out to anybody that's listening, even if we take away the spiritual aspect of this, forgiveness brings people together, and it eliminates things. I'll just say one more thing. I had my cousin Keith, and he was dying in his bed with ALS. He's such a great guy. And he had a son that had been estranged from him. And they hadn't spoken for, I don't know, something like 30 years, something crazy like that. And I know him, his son. And one of my aunts died, and I went to the funeral, and there was Keith's son. And he ended up giving me a ride to the airport, where I had a chance to talk to him about his dad. And I said, look, man, your dad's dying, and you're going to miss out. You got to go and see him. And he told me, look, that guy, he left me and my mom. He didn't talk to me. He had every reason not to go and see that guy. And I told him, listen, I understand that. I would feel the exact same way, but here's what's going to happen. He's going to die, and then you're going to have to live with that. And it's going to tear you apart. And a few weeks later, he was at Keith's house from Pittsburgh all the way to Los Angeles. He came out there, and I got to be a part of that. And it was the most beautiful thing. They buried the hatchet. Wow. And it was fantastic. And I'm sure today, and I haven't really followed up with him, but I know that he was glad that he did that. And there was a window of opportunity right there that I'm so glad he took it. Changed everything.
Man, that's a great story, and it's very poignant. It's a good time for us to segue into current events. What else you want to get? But I guess here's our segue, I think, because we touched upon this about the woke movement, which is completely engulfed everything now, including themselves. So it's so destructive because it's opposite. It's a complete void of everything that is completely pure in this world, and that is love. As you said, forgiveness is completely tied with that. And there's no forgiveness in the woke movement. So what does that mean? That means everyone's guilty, including the hypocrites that are casting the judgment. So guilty. And so the movement has gotten to the point where a long time ago, to be truthful, and that you must virtue signal out there and condemn white people, and heterosexuals and males. Those three things before you can be not seen as racist and homophobic and everything else. In other words, you must declare your racism yourself in this backwards way that things are, your own sexual phobia against heteros or whatever, and the whole hatred of this false patriarchy, and speak of things that don't exist like white supremacy and white privilege. And that turns my stomach every time I hear it.
And don't forget Trump supporters. Anybody that supported Trump and any
that's pure evil there.
Yeah, you've become now a virtual outcast in society. And so, here in my lifetime, I grew up in an era where Black people were fighting for equality. And in my lifetime, I saw that happen. But then suddenly, as a conservative, I'm right back where I was before. It's just like, you can't get away from this kind of stuff. So, I think it was a prominent Nazi that said a very, and I don't remember the name of the person, but you'll probably recognize this. He said, first they came for the disabled people, and then they came for the Jews, and then they came for these people, and then they came for those people, and then finally they came for me, and there was no one left to help me. And here he was, but this is the problem with this type of philosophy, is that you pick all your enemies, you find their faults, and okay, they're the enemy. Well, pretty soon, I mean, no one's perfect. It's going to
realize everyone's the same.
Yeah, it's going to come back on you, and yeah, it kind of reminds me of a Star Trek episode where they found this computer. It was like a robot, and it came, and its whole mission was to eliminate imperfection. And so
I don't remember this one.
Oh, it was a really weird one. And so basically it was trying to kill all human life because we were imperfect. And and then it actually thought Kirk was its creator, and Kirk, it ended up
Kirk was perfect.
It ended up finding out that Kirk was imperfect.
Okay.
But then the whole thing that made it destruct was that if Kirk is imperfect and he created it, then it's imperfect. So it had to self-destruct.
Oh, that's such a typical
but
original
listen,
Star Trek.
It's like a parable of what's happening today.
All Star Trek episodes were. Yeah.
You this whole movement is that everybody's got to be perfect, that you can't have any type of prejudices or anything like that. Well, hey, mankind has failed. I mean, we have these terrible things inside of us. None of us are perfect. None of us can hit that mark that they want. And it's interesting, if you take a look at the Nazi the Nazi Germany thing, one of the first things that Hitler did was he took over the church, and then he rewrote the Bible. And the main verse in the Bible was, and now there is no forgiveness for sin. This is what we're looking at.
Yes,
that's what we're looking at. It's the same spirit, is what I'm trying to say. It's the
agreed spirit. Yeah, agreed.
When will people wake up and realize that that's what it is?
Do you feel like it's happening? I kind of feel like it's starting to happen.
I think I kind of feel that way too. Well, here's the one thing that we're seeing that's different is we're actually seeing like CNN coming out and questioning Joe Biden and saying, wait a second, you like the whole border thing, they were mad. Wait, you're not going to let us see what's happening at the border?
I've seen that too.
Yeah, and you're seeing, this, wait a second, that you said you were going to do this and now you're not doing it. I'm starting to see it, but it's so hard to tell. Yeah, because of how the media is so filtered now.
Yeah, it really is. So it's a mishmash of everything right now. The thing about CNN and all the cable news, we've discussed this before, is with Trump out of the picture, their ratings have tanked. Big time. They don't know where to go. So the Asian thing, Asian hate, that they keep trying to promote because racism has worked so well for them for so many years. I don't know. They can't find enough stories. And it amazes me. You know, bad things happen to people all day, every day. All of us, and, you know, across this nation of 360 people. So if they're non-white, you can make it about race. And if you, and if it's not that, well, maybe you can make it about the gun or
it's so
something
sick.
else divisive.
Yeah. I mean, really, come on. Everything is about racism. So here's the thing. Or it's climate change, or somehow they've got to mix all these things together. So we're taking a look at this border crisis right now, and it's terrible what we're seeing right now. It's sad. It's a disaster. It's a disaster.
And I want to just say quickly, the reason we're in this disaster is because Trump was trying to do something that he was actually carrying on with what Obama was doing, to tell you the truth. But it wasn't in the limelight whatsoever about trying to control what is going on with illegal immigrants. I said trying to moderate and everything. But now that that the Democrats politicized it under Trump, it became now it's an anti-Trump thing. So if you try to fix it, you're going to show
guys.
Yeah. Now, what are you, a Trumper?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what we're seeing, what we saw during Trump was we saw AOC go down to the border and say they're running a concentration camp down here. That's what she actually said.
And have you seen what she said this week?
Yes, that's where I was going. Now it has to do with climate change. It has to do with our she's got a word for this, but it's basically this incarceration system that we have. Carceral, I think, is the word that she's.
I've not seen her heard that.
And also it has to do with somehow this doesn't have anything to do with concentration camps anymore. It has to do with how bad we are because we have not adopted the Green New Deal. Right. And all of this carbon that we're emitting is going down to Central America and Mexico, which is causing people to have to flee their lands and come up to the United States. So this isn't, and so she said, of course, Biden just came up with his tax plan this week. We'll get to that in a second. $2 trillion. Throw another $2 trillion on there. She's saying it is not enough. We need at least $10 trillion for this.
Get the printing presses going.
Wait a second. $10 trillion. First off, people have no idea what they're saying when they're just banding about these trillions of dollars.
She never has any idea what she's saying. Never. And you can't question the left because, like I always say, they don't even put comment sections under their articles and stuff.
Where did 10 trillion come from? I mean, you just pull a number out of the air. Hey, 10 trillion. That's what we need. This is the scary thing is every time they tell us something like this, they throw out $1 trillion or $1 billion or $10 billion. It never costs what they say it's going to cost. It always costs at least 2 times more than what they say. These are the same people also that told us that, hey, if you want to keep if you like your doctor, you could keep your doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
They never tell the truth about these things. This thing that's happening at the border, though, to conflate it with global warming and the Green New Deal, and somehow it's a racist thing against people of color, what's happening at the border. It comes down to this. Their biggest weapon that they're using to get things done right now is shame.
Yes.
They will shame you
always.
This is how we got to Black Lives Matter becoming so popular. It's all about white guilt and shame. This is how they try to get people. I don't know if you saw down at the border with Ted Cruz trying to film, and this woman comes out of nowhere and puts her face in the camera and says, please respect the people. And please respect the people. And it's like, wait a second, respect the people.
Exactly.
You see what's going on behind you? These people are like treated like animals behind you. There's several people with COVID that they're now forced to be in. The whole policies that you said, oh, well, come on in. Of course, there's going to be gobs of people coming in. And now they're risking their lives by coming across that desert. They've got drug coyotes that are after them. You've got sex traffickers. Did you see the little kids that got dropped over the
last night? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, these people don't care about humanity.
No, they care about their political interests, and they'll spin it. And I think they kid themselves. I think they actually believe what they're saying. I think
a lot of them do. And the funny thing is that, so you've got those people that are empowering some very evil people that are into
the cartel,
the cartels with the drug trafficking and the sex slavery that's happening. The numbers around this human trafficking thing that are happening on a yearly basis.
Nobody would believe the numbers. It's so sickening. It's so prevalent today. People want to talk about restitution, or what do they call that? Reparations from stuff from 250 years ago, what have you. Sex slavery, the slavery that is going on just on the underground in every state. Ohio's supposed to be big on it. People getting abducted into slavery, young girls and stuff. And we hardly talk about it. The numbers are unreal.
And the thing is that border that we have in the South is the big way for these people to get away with sex slavery. They get across the border and they're home free. And what we're seeing too, and there's a black market for children down there as well, where they're stealing kids, kidnapping them. They bring them across the border. They sell them to other families. This is happening, and this is why the border crisis is such a big crisis. Not to mention, we've got two other things that are happening, which is people are coming across the border. We're letting them in. We're not giving them a court date to come back. They're just coming into the country and they have no obligation to come back. Secondly, we're letting a bunch of people come in that are positively testing for COVID. Yeah. So we've got many different strains apparently that are out there. So we're not even caring about that. And then finally, gosh, here in San Diego, our kids still aren't in school here in California, but we've got a facility that's opened up this week in San Diego, where the teachers in San Diego are now having class with these immigrant kids, these migrant kids, but not with the American kids.
Yeah, they don't even know how to. I don't want people to get sick of us talking about this. It's in the news so much, but I do want to say,
it's a scary thing though.
It's super important. And I would love to get this conversation rolling. That I've thought about this for years. I've mentioned it before. I think people just think I'm being, I don't know, hyperbolic maybe, but I wish we would start discussing, our government would start discussing with the Mexican government, us annexing them. I mean that. I'm not just saying because I want to go live on the beach in Cancun or something, but I seriously think it through. First of all, the government there is very weak compared to the cartel. They're terrified of the cartel. There's a lot of problems with the cartel. There's a good argument that the cartel really runs Mexico.
I agree.
And I think that if our government was really in talks with the Mexican government, that if we could find a way to annex Mexico, it would be literally the biggest step on the way to world peace that we could imagine in our lifetime. I mean, we could talk about the Middle East and everything, of course, but we can, with just Mexico, we can then start to spread the democracy and get into Haiti and Central America and the other extremely problematic countries that they risk their lives to flee, Cuba, and really. Then at that point, you can say, come on over. We'll send a boat for you. And, when those little tiny countries are empty, and we can just take those over as well. And with a more peaceful way of life, with a very contributing way of life to the world. I think it's the right thing to think about. I think we should talk about that. I think we should spread
I think
that
it's
word.
a good discussion. I see a lot of inherent problems with that. I think I love the way that you're talking about it, though. As I think about the current administration that's in there, here's some of the things that come to mind, and that is just the whole woke mentality of the transfer of wealth. And what you have down in Mexico is you've got a very poor country, and it's not poor because of, I personally believe it's not poor because it's Mexico. It's poor because of how the Mexican government has handled their resources.
Absolutely.
And so what we have is, if we were to take over a country like that, we would be now liable for the welfare of those people, and most of those people would probably go into our welfare system.
$10 trillion should take care of that.
yeah, exactly.
I know what you mean, but there's
so
much resource there, Merle. I think we would become 5 times more prosperous GDP wise than we are now.
I think also when you take a look at taking over a country and trying to manage those resources there, you end up getting bitter resentment from people that that don't actually live there. And there's one other thing here, Barry, and that is that here in America, when we have the immigration laws that we have, if somebody wants to become a citizen here, they have to go through a pretty extensive indoctrination program. We all did when we grew up, going through school and everything, and learning about our rights and the way America works and what our values are. Mexico doesn't have that now. So bringing on a Mexico with all of the problems that they have, I think has the potential of significantly changing America, especially if suddenly they're allowed to vote and they don't have our values. That to me spells, rather than helping Mexico, that could actually bring us to the same level as Mexico and the rest of Central and South America. So I think it's a good discussion. I think there's a lot of risk there.
I know what you mean about the risk, and it's something that could not happen via a war, a takeover. It would have to be a plan.
It would be a social kind of
construct.
Plan, right?
Yeah. That's what I mean. I think the conversation needs to get started. I think you bring up very valid points that need to be addressed.
I also think that if we take a look at the vulnerability here in American society right now, I mean, we are at a tipping point on what kind of America we're going to be. We were to take over all of Mexico, the direction that America is going right now would start to happen at warp speed. We would not, I don't see us going in a good direction, especially under this administration that wants to bring on Puerto Rico and Hawaii. I think it would enshrine the Democrat Party forever, that we would lose the two-party system that way. I think there's a lot of different little things that have to be considered for something like that. But I have thought about this myself. I don't think that it's a discussion that's unnecessary, but there's a lot to think about there.
I appreciate your points, but I'm totally of the mindset right now that the pendulum has peaked, and on the one side
could be.
I
hope you're right. I hope you're right.
the anti-Trump hate, the hate party, and I said that during the whole time. Like everybody said was anybody but Trump. Anybody Trump. I'd always back when I would go on social media and partake in this stuff, I would say, no. What do you stand for? Who do you stand for? Don't say Trump in there anywhere. Crickets, man. They couldn't talk. It was the hate party. And what are you going to do with hate? Now look where it got us. So just to cap this off, the whole border problem is because it was a Trump issue. So if you do anti-Trump, look where we're at. So I think
the border problem is we've had a long history of the border problem going up and down and everything, and I don't think there's any real good answers here.
There's not. There really aren't. But there's
no matter what you do, it seems like somebody's going to find some optics to make it look like a concentration camp or some kind of horrible thing. But I don't. God bless them. I think that the president should be very involved in this. The president should go down to the border. The president should look at what's happening. The president should never try to limit media access to what's going on, because this is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And if there's a crisis, it's our crisis, not just some elites that have to deal with this. We need to all be involved in this. We're all adults. And then we need to, obviously those people need help. I have compassion for those people, but the right answer has to be a fair answer for everybody. And we need to figure out what that is. So I don't believe that. I think what I'm seeing here is a lot of people are being taken advantage of in many different ways on both sides of the equation.
I absolutely agree. I think that the whole border issue and illegal immigration is just a perfect political talking point, ripe with manipulation.
Oh boy, that is the truth. Hey Barry, I want to segue here because
please.
Time's flying here.
Please. We've talked about this.
A lot of talk about this COVID vaccination passport.
Yes.
And I'm pretty concerned about this.
I
wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Well, I hadn't thought about it much because I was so busy this week. I didn't go in depth in a lot of things. I've seen the headlines and stuff. So please tell me the details about this.
Yeah. So, of course, New York has passed a law now where you can't go into any type of a sporting venue or a concert or something like that without this they're calling it some kind of a vaccination passport.
Okay, gotcha.
So it shows that you've had your vaccination or that you have tested negative, I guess, for COVID-19. And so I'm not exactly sure how this works, but China has been promoting this type of a thing for a long time. They call it their social credit program that they have over there. And they definitely have this where you are either rewarded or punished if you're complying with all of the different government things over there. And China now has this whole vaccination as part of it. And they want to use QSR codes to be the sort of the code that contains all this information. So what my concern is here is that the U.S. government now, the federal government is saying, hey, we are going to give guidance. Apparently they're looking at getting a third party to make this happen for the country. And on the surface, it seems like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But it is ripe with all kinds of potential disasters that could happen with this. The first thing is that, it could definitely give a false sense of security here, depending on how the vaccination works in the first place. Because what we're seeing out there is that a lot of people who have had the vaccination are actually contracting COVID again. So
I doubt there's a lot of people. I'm sure that you've heard some stories about some, but if you gave me a percentage, that's what I'd be interested in knowing.
Yeah, I don't have a percentage. I just have numbers here. But the fact is that it's not a guarantee that you're not going to get it again.
That's not a guarantee.
That's the bottom.
But the percentage chance of not getting it again is very high, which is good. Yeah, I'm just going to throw out quickly to my opinion on what you've said, because I've not had that deep dive that you just gave us, that it would take a lot of money and time to implement all of that, and we should be at herd immunity by then.
Big time.
Yeah, I said before, I think
you're going in the direction I want to go on this too.
Open it up. And then let's see. Let's take a look at the places that are opening up and see how their numbers are doing. And from what I'm seeing so far, everything's going in the right direction.
Well, take a look at Texas. They eliminated their mask mandate several weeks ago. The numbers have been going down and down and down. It's looking very good over in Texas right now. Meanwhile, in other states that still have lockdowns, they're still having problems. So the mask thing seems to not be the thing. There must be something else here. I want to get back to this QSR code thing, and my concern on this is that it's not so much the first off to mandate that somebody gets a vaccination. And if they don't, they're not going to be able to travel any place or do anything really is unprecedented. We've never had anything like that before. So, this administration that's trying to make this happen is very concerned with this whole woke mentality. But I actually see where putting a passport like that out there, when you have 47% of Trump supporters that are saying they won't take it, you're actually creating another class of people at a lower class that now are not permitted to buy and sell or participate in society. So you're actually creating a class of people that have no rights. That's pretty scary. And here's the last thing is, if you're starting to use a code and it's going to be a QSR code for vaccinations, this is the proverbial foot in the door. What else can you put in there as requirements? And you could start to load that type of thing up so that you are completely controlled by the government on something like that. Finally, being in the spirit of Good Friday, this does smack of the book of Revelation and the mark of the beast. And if you start going into how that happens, where it's a cashless society in there and you are not able to buy and sell unless you have the mark, it starts to become very ominous. So I think this is something that is going to be talked about more and more. And I'm pretty concerned that it's going to be accepted by the general public.
Boy, you got some good points there. I immediately thought of the Patriot Act, and it's like, okay, they're going to pass that and never repeal it. And
that's right.
So I'm in agreement with you. I don't like any of it. I don't like the politicization of all this. I don't like the term labeling things with Trump supporters. Trump's not the president anymore. This is Biden's America.
I hear you.
But here's what I do like. I try to stay neutral on the politics part. And I wish to hell that everybody would get the vaccine and we can get to herd immunity and we open things up and we start enjoying things the way we should be enjoying them. And we should be able to get to the so-called, I know Fauci, I'm so sick of Fauci, who waffles all over the place. One day we need 70% that reach herd immunity, and next we need 85%.
Always moving the goalposts.
Exactly. And I think it's pretty well documented that he and the lady that came out the other day, like looking like she's about to cry. And what was the term that she used? Some kind of ominous end of the world. She senses that we may hit basically it means a ominous end of the world type of thing with COVID again. And
I didn't hear it.
It was very manipulative. Anyways, I wish they would go away and let's just use real science. Let's look at the numbers. Let's see what happens when people are not wearing masks and they're outside. I think that's going to go well. But I said before, I myself was doing research about what's going on in a lot of other countries. There are a lot of other countries that have gone, their chart is like ours backwards. They're doing horrible. So I'm cautious. I want to be cautiously optimistic. I'll say again, wish everybody would get the vaccine. I want to get on the other side of this.
Yeah. And so there are some people that are not able to get the vaccination. There are people that have comorbidities that actually say that you can't have the vaccination. There are people that have religious reasons for not taking it. So there's a lot to think about when we
got rid of polio.
And not everybody had to take a vaccination for that in order to get rid of it. So herd immunity is a big deal, and it can be assisted with the vaccination. Nobody's really talking about that, so that not everybody has to take it. The other thing is this, is it truly a vaccination where you don't have to take it again? I think there's some talk about that as well.
Flu strains.
Like it's more like the flu shot, which isn't really a vaccination. It's more of are you going to need booster shots like the tetanus shot or the there's another one, tuberculosis. So there's a lot of that. So how much of this do you put into your system? These are the people that are concerned about pharma don't want to put things inside of them. Like myself, I don't take any pharmaceuticals whatsoever. I don't trust them. So you have a lot of that. We live in America where you have freedom of choice. I just think that we're getting ahead of ourselves when we start to talk about forcing everybody to do this. I think it's unreasonable.
I never said force everybody. I
know you didn't, but
never
would. This vaccination passport actually would force people
see what
to
you're
have
saying.
to do.
Yeah, no,
that.
see,
I'm not saying you said that.
Only such a small percentage of population is at risk that I always say
that's the big deal.
If you get COVID, hey, I don't want to be you for a week, but you're gonna be okay. It's gonna have the same effect as getting the vaccine. So, all right, let's just try to be cool about it, and let's not let it.
That's a good way to put it.
Not
right?
let
try
it
to be cool, man.
Yeah, just not let it take over the country, because we should hit herd immunity within, I don't know, a couple of months maybe. Yeah. I don't know what it's going to be, but God, I don't want to talk about this. You know what? I want to ask you something. I did not read this article, but I saw this headline about LA. It's every week. LA is like, oh my God. So here's the headline. Fury at plan to scrap Los Angeles's specialist hardcore gang unit after 42 years because it is offensive to the community, and move branded a suicide pact by police. It's a horribly worded headline, but
I'm not sure what it meant. No.
Okay. So the
police are going to commit. Who's
there's
suicide?
Been this specialized, it's been like this so-called SWAT team or
gang
something
unit,
called the hardcore gang unit.
Yep.
And they're the ones that are internally the police call it a suicide pact group, because they're the ones that have to go into the hardcore gangs.
Oh, I see. I understand what you're saying.
Clean it up. But so, of course, LA wants to scrap the whole thing after 42 years of having it. So, this is a Daily Mail, and they do not hire real writers. They hire like 8th graders to do their headlines and stuff. Sometimes it's so hard to read. I wanted to know if you, I would think that you would know a lot about that.
So here in Los Angeles, what's happening is that we've got a district attorney in Los Angeles County named Garcon. He came here from San Francisco. So first he ruined San Francisco, and for some reason he's here in Los Angeles. And it's actually the financial support came from George Soros for him. And now he has decided to not enforce crime enforcement here. The gang violence crime units that they have here, they've decided to defund and have called them, bigotry-based organizations that target Black and Hispanic people and have terrorized them. But I can tell you the people that live in those gang-infested communities rely on those people for their lives. It was really interesting as I looked at a lot of the rhetoric leading up to the election, and the Democratic Party made it seem like kids on their way to school in underprivileged neighborhoods had to fear the police, and that parents were concerned that the police were going to kill them before they got home. But that's really not the case.
No, I know
gang violence is rampant in these areas, and the Black on Black crime that's happening. You have, as a young person, the number one in the Black community, number one cause of death up to, I think, 25 is being killed by another Black person. This is what's happening in our areas, and we've got to eliminating these gang crime units. That's the suicide. That's the suicide of a community.
And that's what I want to just quickly say is it when actual reporters do real reporting and they go into those communities and talk to the people and poll them, they want more police presence. But if you go to the woke people that are on the outside looking in, they all tell you that it's discrimination and racism.
Well, this is the interesting thing, is that when you get to those people outside, they seem to know more about what's happening on the inside than the people that are actually experiencing it.
Because it sounds good, makes them feel better about themselves.
That's exactly all it is. It's virtue signaling. 101. And and again, they're using the same tactic, shame, to try to eliminate these people. Like they'll say these guys are like the KKK, or they're like the Nazis. All you got to do is say KKK or Nazis and people run away scared.
Yep.
I just want to address something real quick, is this whole shaming thing. Yep. I saw Ted Cruz a couple of times over this past week, and I think that he's actually giving us an example of how to deal with the shaming, because I think this is really what we have to learn how to do to overcome this and start to talk about the real issues. Here's what happened. Ted Cruz was in front of a crowd of reporters. He had some people standing behind him. He wasn't wearing a mask. He was about to speak, and before he spoke, it was a press conference. Somebody from the press yells out, "Hey, can you put your mask on?" And he says, "No, I'm speaking right now. I don't wear a mask when I speak." And he says, "And besides that, we've all had our vaccination up here." And the guy says, "Well, we'd feel a lot better if you put your mask on." And Ted Cruz calmly says, I'm sure you would feel a lot better. However, I'm not going to do that. And you're free to leave if you would like. And that's it. That's all he said. You're free.
We actually talked about that last week on one of our shows.
Well, when he saw the woman that got in front of him, he did the same thing. He says, "Oh, I see. You've worked here for 2 weeks, and I'm sure that that you want me to respect the people, but that's why I'm here, to do something about it. And the American people need to see this calm, not anger, not attacking her character, but just stating the facts." And I just think we just have to learn how to be immune to this whole shaming thing that's happening. I'll say one last thing is that when we take a look, I'll go back to the Good Friday thing, the book of Genesis in the Bible, Adam and Eve, when they bite into the apple, the very first thing that happens is they hear God coming and they run and hide in the bushes because they realize they're naked.
Yes.
The shame. Shame is the number one weapon of Satan. And it works. It's been working since Adam and Eve. We've got to learn how to be secure in the truth and practice that, so that we start to strengthen ourselves in that area of truth and reason.
That is a perfect way to tie up our show. We just have a few things to talk about. I wanted, podcast wise. So I told you about the Dan and John show, trying to get that going in May.
Yeah.
And I would love to get you on as a guest host once we get our feet underneath of us. And I had the thought, because John, talked to him, texted with him yesterday, and I'm like, where are we at here? We're possibly going to start it last Tuesday, and didn't hear from him. And he goes, I've been in a mental cramp. I don't know what I should talk about this. I said, John, you're overthinking it. It big time. It's going to go by so quick. And I had some concepts about this, and I thought, and I'm always trying to make it simpler and simpler. Whatever we talk about on Friday, I'm going to take 2 of those topics and ask them about it on Tuesday.
That's a good idea. I like
simple. And I
like simple. That's the way to go.
Everybody. And I'm not going to lie to anybody. I want more exposure for our show too. And
right on.
That'll be a whole different audience. And I think it'd be fun. It'll be easy. And once we get our feet underneath of us, which I think would be very quickly, I would like to have you come on and host it maybe every other week or something like that.
I'd love to be a part of that.
I think that'd be cool. Additionally, just an update. I always talk about my friend Geza, who's the art director for that movie. He is on set in Chicago. He's there working on it, but he's all game for doing the podcast. But he just said yesterday, I touched base with him, his rental car got broken into, actually, I think stolen, with his laptop in it.
That's horrible.
So, it is horrible.
Oh my God.
Your whole life is on there and everything.
Yeah.
Let alone $1,000 out the door. But
let that be a lesson to all of us. Don't always keep your laptop within sight.
Or in the trunk. Don't leave it in. Yeah.
It's if you go to a restaurant, bring it with you. I have it right there. I have it. I have the strap on my chair. So if you're gonna take it, you're gonna have to jiggle my chair. You can't. Oh man, that is crazy.
So he's gonna He's going to get a new laptop very soon, and we'll get that rescheduled. And there was one, oh, yeah. So I told you about this via text so my friend Irby Greenwood came over the other day, which was great because I was cleaning the kitchen, which was overwhelming, absolutely overwhelming. I mean, having to take everything out of the cabinets. I mean, when I clean, getting ready,
you're not messing around,
dude. It's disinfecting everything.
You are Mr. Clean.
Yeah, and I take that very seriously. And with these guys I've had in here, it was a nightmare. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know where to start, kind of thing.
Wow.
So anyways, he came over, and I hadn't seen him in a long time, and so it was great that he's talking. And I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. I'm just doing it. You know, he brought over. I like during the week I do the non-alcoholic beers. He got me my favorite O'Doul's, a 6-pack.
Those are good.
They're really good. I'm going to say again, I always say this. I love the Amber O'Doul's. I hate the regular one. It's in a green bottle. I hate it. So just make that clear before somebody goes, I went out and got one of those O'Doul's because Barry always talks about it's terrible. No, get the Amber.
Get the Amber. Okay.
So we were talking in, so the longtime listeners would probably remember the story that last June, I was out. We talked a lot about this on a podcast. I remember it was called Good Times, Bad Times, and it was last June. And I was talking about the get together that we had out at JT's place out on the lake, way in the country. Yeah. And it was a going away party. It was a very small group of our friends. We were on a volleyball team together and stuff. And it was a going away party because that family was moving out to Luxembourg, which they did. But we had this fantastic time. So I wanted to share that. And we all spent the night. And the next morning, though, Dan is checking his Facebook as he always does. And he tells me that Irby posted that his son was murdered that night that we were having this fantastic time and celebration. And about 11 p.m. that night, last June, his son, who just turned 18, who just got this job at Lincoln Electric, he was going from intern to full-time, a great kid in every regard, a great kid. And Lincoln Electric wrote in all these beautiful things. They just loved him. He was very popular, and Tezan was his name. So Irby has gone through a lot of therapy.
Yeah. That sounds like the appropriate thing to do after something so horrible like that.
Yeah. So personal. And then it led up to in January group therapy. And it's, boy, he said 10 weeks of that. It was the best thing for him and the worst thing. Cause listening to other people's stories, he's like, oh, Thursday it would be leading up to that. And I'd be dreading it, but so powerful that other people have gone through even worse than him, if you could believe that or not. So he's got, as he's telling me this, he's got Tezan's, what would be his 19th birthday coming up May 1st. I believe it's the 1st, May. And that's going to be very hard. So whatever he's gone through to this point, he's not hit the worst yet, he thinks. And I agree. Then right after May, he's got June, the anniversary of his murder. So he's wondering how to deal with this. And so needless to say, he leaves. I'm faced with my mess. I'm cleaning, and he's on my mind all night, all the next day. And I texted him the next day, and I said, I say this apologetically, but and we said, hey, let's go out for a happy hour this Friday. Tonight, we're going out for a happy hour.
Cool.
So like yesterday, or I think it was yesterday, that I texted him and I said, hey, just I want you to know I'd never do this in an exploitive way. I'm just offering, would you like to come on the podcast and talk about your ordeal, your situation? And he immediately responded and said, yeah, I think it'd be really good for me and maybe some other people.
Wow.
I was surprised because I cannot think of anything, certainly that we've done, that is more personal and more tragic, more emotional than this. And
no kidding. I can tell that this is going to be challenging, just because I don't know Irby, but just hearing the story, I'm choked up, and I can't imagine how am not going to be choked up hearing it coming from him personally.
Yeah, I certainly hope that you are on that podcast with us. I think, and I talked to Lisa about this, that you're both Christian. I know, talking with Irby over the last year, he's questioned his Christianity. I think
who wouldn't?
Yeah.
I mean, that's natural.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be the most important podcast we ever do. And
I'm actually really looking forward to meeting Irby. Number one, and really just being able to interact with him on this level. Yeah. I commend him for having the courage to come on and talk about this oh so personal thing and tragic. But I also understand what he's saying is that this could help other people. Yeah. And that's what you do when you have a tragedy in your life to heal.
Give it some meaning.
And then you turn around and you help other people. That's the fastest way to get back to where you need to be. Yeah. And also his tenacity and moving forward and getting help, and just now hearing that he's also a Christian. To me, I was watching a show earlier where this mother was talking about this terrible murder of her daughter, and she was saying that she just put her hand out to God, and that God has just carried her through everything. That she's still sad about it, but he's the one that's given her strength to carry through this whole thing. Yeah. I'm so glad that Irby has that kind of strength and help that he can turn to in his time of weakness, because we all need to be able to have that.
You know what? This is all good timing that I never, ever considered. Good Friday. We are going out for happy hour. We're going to discuss this, discuss the points we want to talk about. There are a lot of points. You don't even know this. The health crisis that he went through at the same time.
I mean, he was going through it when that happened, right?
Yeah. He's gone through, he's had a lot of loss. I'm going to tell this story we're over as always. In the after show, I'm going to tell you a story that we'll talk about his character.
I wanted to say, I'm looking forward to that. I wanted to just say before we wrap up this show that I'm very much looking forward to having you as a guest host on CyberTalk this week on Wednesday on IBMTV.tv. It comes on it streams live actually at 9 a.m. Eastern time.
Nice.
6 a.m. Pacific time. But we're going to be talking about this addictive, intrusive, and persuasive suggestive app platforms and how that's affecting our society today. And we're just going to have a great talk with Rex Lee, my co-host on that show. And I just love that we're able to do this kind of thing and sort of cross-pollinate between these two shows.
I do too. I say all the time, that's the most important stuff that we have to talk about. I mean, we talked about the border for so long here. Tell you what, we get manipulated out of our freedom of choice, which is what is happening virtually. Then there's nothing left. So yeah, I can't wait to talk about that. I hope I can contribute in some way. If you give me a link for a change, I will put it in our show notes to CyberTalk.
And I will do that. It's just IBMTV.tv. It's like you go to that website and CyberTalk is right there along with the other shows.
Okay.
It's like Apple TV. Just pull it up. There it is. Rex Lee and Merle Garrison, CyberTalk, IBMTV.tv.
All right. Can't wait. Hope I can do us proud.
For sure, man. Okay. Just be yourself, and that's all you got to do. You're awesome.
All right. I'm going to save my funny April Fool's Day for the after show, the story I was telling you about. You're going to like it. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks a bunch. Hey, if you go to over50startingover.com and sign up for our mailing list there, you will get all these links I speak of in there, including the link to the after show. As it happens, right to your email box. You don't have to search for anything. All right, Merle. Love you. Talk to you in the after show.
All right. Happy Easter.